Bom, temos o prazer agora de ter a nossa convidada aqui, vizinha do Instituto de Computação, a professora Claudia Medeiros, morro acima. A palavra está com você.
Muito obrigada. Obrigada, Maculão. Depois que eu vi pronto que ela era mais velha que você. O rapaz que ganhou o Serra Pilheira está aqui, ó.
Não, foi embora.
Não é possível. Ele me disse que vinha assistir. Eu vou dedicar a ele essa... Ok. Is it okay if I speak in English or not? Anybody has any problem? Because this way you'll be forced to listen. Yeah, no, it's good. Okay, so, will you please let me know when I still have 10 minutes. That means 20 minutes. You will, but you have to be very obvious. You scream and jump, because I may not. Okay, so, where's the whatever? Here. So, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about new trends and why we should pay attention to this new trend of open science and a little bit of what we are doing at FAPESP. Please notice I am not FAPESP here, even though I co-coordinate the e-science and data science program there. Okay? So, what I'd like you to remember at the end of the talk are these three things. What is open science? What does open mean? And what's the impact? How many of you have heard of open science? Oh, quite a lot. You'll see that there are many definitions, and mine is different. So I'm going, this talk is divided into two parts. The open science part, and then what we are doing at FAPESP. So why is open science important? Well, first of all, it's been declared to be a priority of all the science ministers of the G7 countries. And not only that, there are all kinds of reasons, of course, but for the new European financing program that will start in 2020 until 2027, they are going to reserve 30 billion euros for research around and for open science. So if you want to collaborate with European countries, and then there's another 30 million for open innovation. So if you want to collaborate with Europe, and not only Europe, if you want to collaborate with any North American country, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, Haiti, okay? So it's everywhere now, and it's within the plans of the federal government, and it's already been implemented for the state and at the state of São Paulo through FAPESP, and we are pioneers in Latin America. So I'm going to use a definition of the National Academies, I don't need the eyeglasses now, of the National Academies of Sciences, and this definition is as follows. Open science is mainly composed of three things: papers, data, and methodologies, running code, processes, workflows. But to me, these are all bytes, so it's data, okay? It's either static or dynamic data. And so I'm going to talk interchangeably about open science and open data. So open, first definition of open is, which I thought, and which was my definition until last year, okay? Everything and its science. So everything digital associated with scientific experiments and should be made available in public repositories. And the way scientists collaborate is through the data. So this is my view of the world. Everybody has a different set of lenses through which they look at the world, and my view is we understand what people do if they describe their data. But I know that some of you are mathematicians and you despise data. But you don't despise papers, and papers are data for me. So we all talk data speech. This is an example of the kind of collaboration that I've been dealing with both in my research and through FAPESP. We had a call on electronic agriculture last year, and we had projects that involved people from many fields. So we had people, for instance, that combine projects that combine researchers from food sciences and agricultural sciences, or genomics, food sciences, environmental sciences, without forgetting social sciences, because among others, the change of labor forces in the agricultural world. So when we talk about multidisciplinarity, we can think about, and many other things, okay, many other factors, and data, to me, are the glue through which people can exchange knowledge. Of course, they have to speak to each other as well. So now that's the definition I learned last year from a guy who works at NASA, a researcher, not a guy. First of all, I'm talking about digital data, which may be obvious to you, but not to me. Because as a data person, I'm often called to talk to people here at Unicamp and elsewhere who have data problems concerning physical samples. Their databases are full of drawers with samples of leaves, for instance, and that's their database. So open data means that it's not everyone can see the data. Everyone can discover if data exists and how to obtain that data. And later on at Isia's talk, you are going to see that this wonderful project that she leads is through this notion of open data. It's not that all data are open, but at least you know where data are and how or whether you can get the data. Am I speaking too fast? Okay. So open science is actually open metadata. Metadata has to be public. So, parenthesis, what is metadata? Unless you are very different from my students, 50% do not know what metadata is. And of course, there are zillions of definitions. You know what metadata is, Jacqueline? Can you define it for me? No, don't do that. Metadata are records that describe other records, okay, in a very simple way. So here you have a paper, and you have some sort of information, basically library information, which allows you to look for the paper and then retrieve it. And of course, if it's protected, you cannot retrieve it unless you pay. But at least you know the paper exists. And you can go to the Russian site and get it for free. Anyway, but I did not say that. But there are other kinds of metadata. Labels in a medicine bottle, information about this event. This is metadata about what we are doing today. And this is metadata that sends your brain to something that are the contents. And what is this? So metadata may be also subject to interpretation, and this is one of the problems about open data. It's not enough to be open. So I close the parenthesis, I define metadata, and now we continue. Okay? And retrieving, this is very important because it's a very different concept from everything must be open, because there are lots of privacy, intellectual property issues, and then people do not want to publish their data. And I say, you do not need to publish the data, but you need to publish the best data. So this, in fact, is open science. The metadata about everything is open, and then you click on metadata records or whatever, and you get the files. So what's the impact of the open science document on our not document movement, on our world? Well, funding agencies would, and wonders, because, of course, you do not have to keep funding project after project to collect theoretically the same data sets. And so we save resources, the same data sets. You do not have to re-implement the same software, you reuse software. And through reuse, you improve, you modify, you accelerate scientific research. Also, you can reproduce. So yesterday, Claudia talked about reproducibility. And if you make your data and processes and documentation open, others can theoretically, again I say theoretically, okay, in theory, reproduce whatever you have done. And of course, you become, and your research becomes more transparent. Moreover, there are lots of studies now that show that if your data is public, more people will cite you. And it is not, let me see what comes next. So the scientists of the 21st century must understand data issues. And please notice that it is not, I'm not just talking about data associated with a published paper. I'm talking about files that are cited by themselves. At the Texas A&M University 2 years ago, I met this professor who keeps a webpage of over 2,000 to 3,000 matrices, sparse matrices. And the matrices themselves have been given to him by industries. So these are matrices of hundreds of thousands of rows and columns that are used in all kinds of experimental optimization with code. And the matrices are cited, and his site is cited. And he got a big raise in salary because of the citation his matrices get. And he said, believe it or not, the matrix that's most used is 2 by 2. Oh, wow, let me create a 2 by 2 sparse matrix. And I'll get tenure. Okay, but no, but this is just a very subtle change in the citation and promotion and tenure movement associated with open science. So, data-driven science, collaboration through sharing data, and some of the challenges, which are not obvious. Oh, I still have lots of time. First of all, how do you find what you want? Okay, so we were looking for something in Google, say, and Google returns the, 34,000 whatever that might be of interest to you, but maybe yours is the 34,000th, and it's hard to find. Updating. versioning, curation and long-term preservation. I was talking 2 weeks ago with someone from Caltech about the future of astronomy and the new astronomical observatory and telescope that's going to be deployed in 2021 that will produce petabytes of data. There is no place in the world today, in the present world, nowhere in the world, that has a solution, not of how to store, but how to preserve, because you have to do backup. By the time you finish your backup, a century has passed, okay? So computer scientists, they are creating a coalition of astronomers, politicians, funding agencies, to define new ways of storing, preserving, and pre-processing, and doing backup of astronomical data. And that applies to different kinds of data, okay? Visualization, and of course interpretation, because it's in the eye of the beholder. So, and this is an important issue, because people say, open science, open data, it's open. But if it's not well documented, it's not reusable. If it's not clean, it's worthless. So how to understand, how to reuse, etc., etc. And the very important issue that is now compulsory is does your new data science course have ethics in it? Or you don't?
A little bit. But
A little bit. You need more. Okay, I haven't even seen it, but I've already. As you all know, there's a big ethical problem in what to collect, how to preserve, the right to forgetfulness. And the new Brazilian law about private data will be put in practice October next year. And theoretically, as of October next year, you can ask other people to forget about you. How can they prove that I have deleted everything they have recorded about you? Okay, so there are all kinds of ethical problems. So for instance, at Oxford, they have created a digital ethics lab, which puts together people in philosophy, social sciences, computer science, engineering, and they are creating a PhD program in digital data ethics. The same, and there are lots and lots of courses, University of Michigan. I had others, Berkeley, data ethics, Georgetown, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. This university in Norway, every student has to take at least X credits in digital ethics courses. It's considered to be part. So what are we doing about this thing in Unicamp? And here, I like this, Prepare Iowa, because it's ethics and data integrity for non-technical staff. It's a course dedicated to non-technical staff. So everybody should, and this is all associated with the rise of open data, open science. Now, I know this is a mathematical event, and I'm going to destroy my reputation, the little reputation I still have among you guys at IMEC, with a joke. It's not a joke, it's a real story. This is my webpage. And this is me, believe it or not. So, about 10 years ago, I had this project with Bremen in Germany, and the professor there told me, I'll send a student to pick you up at the airport. And it's a small airport, so I got off the plane, and I waited, and the airport got empty. And there was just this guy, up and down, carrying a sheet of paper, and he would look around. There was just me and him. So he came to me finally, and it was a copy of my webpage. And he said, is that you? And I said, yes. And he said, you changed a lot. Well, and that was 10 years ago, believe it. Now, why am I telling you the story? Because I want you to keep the idea of open in mind. And I use humor to excite your neurons. Thank you so much. This is open information. He got to my page through metadata with my name, contents. There's information about my email, where I work, my CV, publications, student, whatever. So, what is wrong with this open data source? There is one very important metadata field that's missing, which is validity. It does not say that this picture was taken when I was hired by Unicamp. Wow. Yeah. So that's why he says I'm older than he is. But anyway, so remember that open is not enough. It has to have quality, and the metadata must be accurate. And only us, scientists, can provide the accurate metadata. So, remembering open and everything, the last 6 minutes I'll dedicate to what we are doing at FAPESP. And Benilton is, there you are, is a very important part of it. Right, Benilton?
I hope so.
You are. Okay, so, in 2017, FAPESP started this notion of compulsory data management plans to all thematic projects, so now young researcher projects, very soon postdoc projects, and then all projects. Has anybody here already submitted the research data management plan to FAPESP? Yeah, okay.
Benilton Road.
Benilton Road. Ah, that's unfair. So, but then, of course, and I'll show you what a data management plan is in 5 milliseconds. It is part of your research to plan what you're going to do with your data so that it will survive after the research, so that it can be found and reused. But then people started saying, okay, but if we have to store it, universities have to provide the infrastructure. So this group started, coordinated by me, to establish the first network of research data repositories in South America. Probably Latin America, but I'm not sure. Okay, I mean, there are smaller networks, but this is the largest network that I know of. And what is a data management plan? You just describe the data that you're going to produce, where you will store, for how long, and how. And ethics considerations. Now, some people come to me and say, oh, but I just produce theorems. And then I say, you will write in your data management plan, I produce theorems and papers, and the papers will be stored in the university's paper repository. And that's your data management plan. Another one from physics came and told me, my research at the end is a number, 25. What am I going to do with number 25? I am not going to write. I said, no, but what about everything that you use to produce 25? So all the intermediate data, how you collected it and everything, you should describe it and say how you are going to preserve it so it can be reproduced. What is the repository network? It's these universities are now in Brapa as of last year. And it's already in the prototypical version. The idea is the following. Each university is building its own repository as it wants and exporting metadata about these data daily to a central metadata crawler, let us say, which has been constructed to talk to the rest of the world so that when this is put in production, final production, anybody from anywhere in the world will be able to find out what's being done at the state of São Paulo by the public system, research system of the state of São Paulo. And now why do I say Benilton is an important guy? Benilton is Unicamp. Well, more or less, right, Benilton? Yeah. You are not Unicamp, but you are the one who's leading the effort on Unicamp's behalf. So I strongly encourage you to go to Benilton's office and tell him, Benilton, I have all these simulation data and I want to make it open. Where is the repository, Benilton?
We'll take care of that, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, and there I could tell you more, but that would be another. Oh yeah, I forgot. 5 minutes, so I'll use the next 2 seconds for subliminary advertisement. Monday from 10 to 12 at the Institute of Computing at our auditorium, I'm giving an advanced topics in database course. And on Monday, it will be on big data, okay? Elementary information, what is big data, how to use it, the dangers and the advantages of big data. And for all of you who have students who you think should learn more about that, or who want to find a different perspective of what big data is, they are all very welcome. There's 100 places there, so there's enough. Just, I would like to have people from everywhere to ask strange questions, okay? So, main takeaways, what is open science? Open is open metadata. And the impact, worldwide collaboration, financing, visibility, and digital ethics, okay? Thank you. Eu vou responder em português, para quem quiser, a menos que queiram perguntar em inglês.
So, thank you for this very nice talk. Claudia, the other Claudia, here.
Oi, Cláudia.
Yeah. It's a good idea, this data management. It's something new for me. I didn't know about that. My question is, where lies, who has the responsibility of maintenance of this?
The curators, which is at the long term the university.
Benilton.
No, no.
Okay.
Benilton is just the black magic behind it. No, Benilton is the one who's setting up the organization, okay? But it's, for instance, in Unicamp, it's a computing center that will keep the data, but of course, you can say, you'll keep it in your lab or whatever. Data management plans are now compulsory everywhere in Europe, North America, Japan, South Korea, parts of India, and so on and so forth. So, and you cannot submit a project without describing what you're going to do with your data and how. That's at the submission phase. In Great Britain, which is way advanced concerning that because they started 12 years ago, they have something called a data curation center. It's about 300 PhDs that train university staff to help you. And also for each project that is approved by, for government financing, they have a mentor, a data mentor, that if you deviate from your data management plan and do not update it, they cut your funds. So data management is considered, this is now going to be done in France and so on.
I'm thinking in the future, for example, the German student who is liable could have sued you because he lost a lot of time trying to find you and your data was not updated. You see?
I see. No, the liability
Happens,
is
what happens in the
something
future?
else, okay? As part of the metadata, there should be the person responsible. At the end, is who generated the data or who curates the data. And this is, we do not have laws for this in Brazil. Okay, but there is a problem there. There are lots of problems.
In the beginning of your talk, you asked for João. João is right here.
Where is João? But you just arrived, João, right?
Yeah, I had a problem. Sorry.
I had a problem because this was dedicated to you. Now I have to start again. Do I have another half hour? João. Ai, 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 João. I'm going to send an anonymous message to Serra Pilheira Institute. This is all being recorded?
Yes, of
Oh
course.
my God.
Not only recorded, it's transmitted.
Another question? Where is Henrique? Henrique is there.
That's okay. So we'll have more time.
Odi? No? Paulo?
Okay. But one thing, those from Unicamp, it's not only to go talk to Benilton. Talk to Munir, who is our Dean of Research, that you want to deposit your data and you want to make the data available. What are you going to do about it? Where is the Unicamp's repository? Unless there's lots of pressure, nothing will happen. Yeah.
Claudia, could you say a little bit more about the Brazilian law you mentioned?
The Brazilian law, it is number 13 something or other, and you can send me an email, but it is the law of protection of private data, which is similar to the European GDPR law of protection of private data. É a Lei Geral de Proteção de Dados, LGPD. Pronto. Tá? And it will start to be applied on October 2020.
But can you say about, let's say, you can raise, you mentioned raising all the data, for example.
The thing is that
records in the university,
whoever holds your data must follow rules that will not endanger your privacy. And whoever holds your data must have a reason to collect your data, either for research or because law it's compulsory by law. And you, as a citizen, you have the right to have a copy at any time of the data that whoever has your data. You can go to the dean and say, I want a copy of everything the university has about me. And you can go and say, I want the university to erase all about my existence. And they will say, we can erase this and that, but we cannot erase other things, because then you will not be able to retire. Okay, which is a very good reason. But because the law demands that we keep the data or whatever. Aisha?
Yeah, just one other important thing is that you have to, not only the person who collects the data has to have a good reason to collect data, but has to ask for permission to collect the data.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Sorry. I was just going to make a comment. It's me here.
Oh, yeah.
It's more restricted than that, but that is, this has to do with publications. There is a big movement nowadays, especially amongst the professional societies like SIAM, like the American Mathematical Society, and also the European professional, mainly mathematics. Is a movement for this open access.
Yes.
Because you see, the way the big publishers are trying to convince governments, especially in Europe, I guess, to put restrictions on how papers are published is sort of driving the publishers from societies to what they think is a bankrupt because of the way so the societies are fighting for this open access way of publishing. I'm not sure about what they're doing at the moment. I saw it in this Congress in Valencia 2 to 3 weeks ago. They're trying to convince the governments to make open access the primary, the preferable way of people publishing when they get public funding, right? And what they're doing at the moment is trying to convince the Americans, of course, the Europeans, and also the Chinese. And I'm not sure what the consequences are for the Brazils for that. Can you expand on that? Because you see, I was asked, but I know that we subscribe by PESP and Unicamp, pays for a big chunk of money. I heard $180 million a year. To get access to get public access to mainly the database in the world, and I'm not sure what the consequences are for that.
I cannot tell you about what's going to happen to the CAPES library. I can only, as you know, well, there's Plan S in Europe, and if you don't know about Plan S, I suggest you Google it, and metadata is Plan S, okay? But here we already have the FAPESP open access policy, and that you have to every result of research paid with public funds is public goods, and as such should be made public. That's the underlying principle. So FAPESP has its open access policy, which you are aware of. Everybody has to make public their papers. But as for copies, I have no idea. But you know what happened at the University of California, right? They broke the contract with Elsevier.
Yeah. This is a result of that, actually.
Yeah.
All this movement is a result of that.
So,
Não queira terminar, mas eu tenho que terminar.
thanks a lot, Claudia.
Thank you.